Good morning. I'm Chris from Artistic Artifacts. Judy, who's been doing our Facebook Live really for the last couple months, is checked in at the airport on her way to Indonesia for one of her creative retreats. So we're all excited to see what she brings back, sharing her pictures, telling her stories. So I'm a stand-in today, and um, let me see, shop announcements. Save the date for Seth Apter. He'll be here September 25th, 20, no, 26th, 27th, and 28th, or somewhere around there. The last weekend in September. Creative Minds Summit last weekend was just awesome. Everybody, the feedback was very positive, and we're working on firming up the teachers for next year, and that will be April 25th, 26th, and 27th. So mark your calendars for that. Sign up for the newsletter to make sure you get early announcements and get your classes. There was discussion about, do we bring the same people back, which was by request from last year. But we're looking at whether we bring in new instructors, new ideas, and new techniques. So stay tuned. I think that's most of it. If we have other shop announcements, we'll put it in the comments. And Sharon's behind the scene today, and between Sharon and I, we'll get products and ideas up online, links and whatever after the video. So what I'm going to talk about today is not how to hand stitch. It's more about finding what inspires you to hand stitch. There is inspiration everywhere out there. If there's inspiration, I find inspiration walking down the street, in the car, looking at nature. I'm all about colors and textures. Some people find inspiration from somebody who likes more complicated stitches. I'm really looking at just playing with color and texture. You would see it in my knitting. So when I'm knitting, I don't knit complicated patterns. I've probably made 20 of this hitchhiker shawl in the past. It's about the yarn and the texture and the color I get from touching, feeling, knitting the textures, and wondering what color is going to come up next. It's a gorgeous variegated yarn from Folktale. We don't sell yarn. I find most of my yarn inspiration on Instagram from independent dyers and spinners. So what usually inspires my work is the fabrics, the products, the colors, the threads that we carry in the shop. So a lot of what I do is make shop samples, or if I'm working on something, actually cutting fabric. So this one, I was telling the staff before we went live, these two linen fabrics, I cut an order for someone last week, and I don't know why I never noticed the fabric before, but look at the opportunity to stitch and enhance that. I mean, they look like woodblock designs. You could actually put a woodblock, print some woodblock on there if you wanted, with our paints, and then you would have opportunity. To me, this just begs for French knots and straight stitches. This one would have a little bit of chain stitching, straight stitching. So a pretty simple pattern. This one's a little bit smaller, so you'd use a smaller thread, but lots of opportunities. So I'm going to show you some of the projects I have done. Most of what I've learned has been from, you can see from this well-worn copy of Modern Hand Stitching. It's by Ruth Chandler, and it's one that I know Judy and I both recommend highly as being unnecessary in your library. She gives you the basics, and then she gives you no boundaries. So here's a cross stitch in a row and how you can use those. I pulled this book out lots, and when we took the class, So I'm going to show you my current project that I'm working on, that I actually am using the book that I learned 10 years ago to finish it off. So one of the inspirations I find is on social media. So I'm on social media to do for the shop. And as a result, I'm looking at other people, what they're doing. Are there products that we might want to purchase and carry in the store? Is there inspiration in colors? I look at what the fabric designers are doing. When the fabric reps come in, Julie and her sister Julie, and I sit with the fabric reps, and my mind is whirling in, oh my goodness, look at this fabric. What can I do with it? It's just like, oh, I can't wait for it to come in. And then when it comes in, it's like, okay, now what do I do with it? So this project I actually started at the beginning of the year with someone on social media called K3N Cloth Tales. She has a YouTube channel that she posts 52, she posts something every week and then sometimes in between. So what she had us do in that was working on some simple, the first one was weaving. So again, these are just scraps of fabric, basic straight stitch, and French knots. Then there was to make a collage. This was actually from a sample when I think I taught back in the fall, some sashiko stitching. But all of my colors were inspired by this fabric. And this was a wide back that we carried. It is now gone. We have gone through 3 bolts of it. But it was the colors in this that inspired how I chose my threads. And I'm not a neat freak when I come to threads, because what I want to do, these are painter's threads. When I'm choosing a thread, I'm actually looking that I want that green to show. So I'm pulling it like this rather than from a spool. So when it's on a spool, you only see what's showing on the outside of the spool. So that's why it's kind of messy there. So I pick my colors. I've got a variety of painter's threads. I've got some Wonderfill Eleganza and a little bit of metallic rayon and some just other miscellaneous threads in there. So I pick my colors, I put them out. I have another basket very similar to this with scraps of fabric and other things I pull from my stash in these colorways. So this one was a log cabin. And again, you can see much of the fabric, but this is some painter's thread, even weave. This is a piece of our hand-dyed silk ribbon. This is a piece of the even weave that I actually fused some organza on. So, but they're all scraps from other previous projects. So when it was time to put the book together, I was like, oh, you know what? I had this book that I never used for Ruth's class. So these are, so I used the blank pages that I hadn't finished. But her book tells you how to take Osnaburg, which we carry, and make your foundation, and then you can put your book together. So one of the other projects in this was to do a fabric scroll of snippets. So again, I took fabric from my stash. I used this hand-dyed velvet that we carry by the spool, and that's actually my background. So that's my foundation for my snippets. And again, you'll just see, I've just made a collage, a linear collage, and just done basic hand stitching, basic running stitch to give the piece texture. And so when I was putting this together this week, deadlines do give you motivation. This is actually going to be, I love the words on it, like tomorrow and now. So this is going to be the ribbon that holds it all together.
Someone asked how you put the book together. They love it.
So the book is actually in, so in the beginning of the book, she shows you exactly how to put the basic of the book together, how to do your front and your back. And then when you've done your stitches, she shows you at the end how to finish the book. Two things that I learned, because like I said, I did this 10 years ago, the book. One is I use regular batting that I had at the time. If I was making it today, I would use flannel because the book is obviously very thick. The other that I learned just yesterday was, because I wanted to sew it together, but I want to add stitches to it. Well, now that it's sewn together, where do I put my knots? So I have to like carefully either pull the knot, through, or make the knot part of the decorative stitch. Okay. So that's my most recent project. But again, it was inspired by somebody I was following on social media. And what I would say is there are so many people who offer classes, whether they're paid classes or free classes. Zen Stitching is another one on social media. They have a Zen Stitching retreat coming up. I know Liz is teaching in that. Liz Kettle is. It's free, or you can do paid, to where you can save the videos and watch them whenever you want, or you can do them during the week that the retreat is going on. That's a great one. Julie Booth, who shops here, buys her threads here, does awesome work. She teaches classes, and I believe she's actually going to be teaching here for our creative retreat next year. I love what she does. Can I do it? Probably not, but it's not me. But I love being inspired by her to see how she puts colors together. Her work is very organic, and mine is very linear. So it's different in style. So find your style, find your color palette. What is it that gives you the joy when you're hand stitching? So I said lots of what I get inspired by is fabrics here. So this is a Denise Burkett from one of her earlier collections. She's got a new glorious one coming out very soon. But this one the quilt is made with the same cut of the same fabric. This is hand stitched. This is machine quilted. But this is almost all painter's threads. The majority of it is just a running stitch, but I painted her fabric with the threads. But, it just makes my heart sing. This is another of her fabrics from another collection. And we don't have this fabric, but we do have this fabric, which is actually even more glorious colorway than this one. But how do you take, again, basic stitches? This is using painter's thread, silk eyelash, and I just wove it in and out and stabilized it and got it down with French knots. So this is not complicated. It's the fabric with the texture that makes it, so wonderful. This one I actually bound hand stitched with Sari silk ribbon. So Her new collection, oh no, that's Denise Burkett. I've stitched on Sally Kelly's fabric before, and this is Sally Kelly's fabric. Again, her designs are just wonderful designs. And so I just stitch, I find the colors, and then I just am doing simple chain stitch, straight stitch, French knots. And I was doing this as a stitch exercise, and this is silk ribbon that I ironed out, wove, and again, I've just used different threads in the pretty basic stitches. A fly stitch, I think that's the only stitch other than the straight stitch. And this is actually with some yarn. And then a little, I think that might be dash flow or something. So I've just stitched along the pattern in the fabric. I personally have trouble with a blank canvas. It's why I don't do journals. I can't write on a blank page, I have trouble working on a blank piece of fabric. But give me a good design on a fabric and I'm ready to go. So we just got Sally Kelly's Botanica in, which again, look at the opportunity for stitching on that. And at the same time, I finished my drop cloth sampler. So what if I take that fabric and another one of the blender fabrics that go with that Botanica and use that to frame my sampler. So this was the Milky Way sampler, and the colors I used for that, because I just happened to be working on her block of the Wonderful block of the month, was I actually used these colors that come as part of the thread kit for the Wonderful block of the month, but those were the colors that I used to stitch my drop cloth. So I wasn't buying new threads, but it was just a wonderful way to play with the threads that I had at home at the time. And the fun thing with these is the pattern comes printed on the fabric. There's a couple of them that have this little bit of painted color in the background, but they're very simple stitches again. This is not a complicated pattern. She's drawn it out for you, but these are the stitches that you're using. And for me to sit in the morning or in the evening when my husband's reading and I'll sit and stitch, it's very therapeutic to just stitch a chain, stitch a fly stitch. Doing the reverse applique was a little more challenging than doing the stitching, but I found YouTube and I did my reverse applique yesterday. So that's another work in progress. But it doesn't have to be just all fabrics. This one is this fabric, which I have framed this sashiko in, was inspired by color choices. And I was using this fabric to make the Disappearing 9-patch quilt kit that we had. And I just love the colors. Who doesn't love turquoise and orange? So I pulled all my painter's threads. There's some metallic, there's a little bit of metallic, there's some silk, there's different weights, there's variegated. I like the painter's thread because this is all from one spool. So I'm getting color variations without having to change threads. And it's, I buy a half a yard of fabric and then I'm able to stretch it over a canvas. This part is made into a quilt and then I've adhered it to the canvas. And this was another sashiko kit that I made inspired by this fabric. We don't have this anymore. It's sold out, but it was the colors in this Japanese design that I chose to use for my sashiko. So sashiko doesn't need to be done in just blue and white. It's you can use whatever colors. This one is actually all using Wonderfill Eleganza 8 weight. So I just, picked out colors that would work. The other one is our block of the month. So this is a Wonderfill project of Birdwatcher. These are the first 3 patterns in the kit. There's one a month. We're actually going to do a Zoom, kind of a hybrid Zoom live stitch along starting in June when Judy gets back from Indonesia. But these are our first samples. And I think Judy did a Facebook Live a couple weeks ago about, we're not pattern people. We're kind of a little bit out of the box. So this one I added some buttons. This one I didn't add anything. She changed out some of the wool. But I'm thinking that I might do this one again. Use the same color birds, but why not put it on, this is my backing. So this is an Esther McLeod, Find the Birds, but wouldn't that be fun? And I could frame it. I could take this and actually just do something much like, much like these where I'm putting it on a frame and not make a whole quilt out of it. Or I could actually applique these onto the fabric. And I just posted yesterday, I shared a video on our Artistic Artifacts Bernina fans Facebook group. And Wonderfill had a video on, this is hand applique. They actually had a video from someone, not a Wonderfill person, but someone else who's doing this in machine applique. So for those people who don't hand stitch, there's a lot of this you can do that way. Another one that inspired me was a couple weeks ago, I was taking a picture for social media for the shop, and I had the 3 colorways of this cave square dance. And I was like, oh, God, those colors are good. And this would be great. And look, I'm going to make a rice bag out of it. Added a little black and white. And I have just hand stitched in the colors. So I pick a color a night and it's like, okay, tonight I'm going to do orange. I don't fill every single block. I just randomly do straight stitch with those colors. I'm using the Glorious Cantha from Aurafill, but we only have 2 more of these. But I happen to have them because I use them. Oh, it's all closed, but they're the colors in here. But these colors of spaghetti would work just the same. This is a 12 weight. They're both 12 weights, but these colors, look at, they just work perfectly. Easy, therapeutic, and this will make a rice bag. And people know I love rice bags, and it's like, why do you make so many? And it's like, look, I got to play with this piece of fabric. I don't have, it's going to be finished. It's not a whole quilt. This is a Echinacea, the Anna Marie Horner Echinacea, but that's all hand stitched. But I didn't have to hand stitch a whole quilt. And this one is machine stitched. So I hand stitched 2 panels and I machine stitched the other, because I don't like doing machine stitching. And this one's a Charlie Harper. His are a little not as complex to stitch, but because I made this one, I was just like, oh, I have to add a little bit of texture. It's just like, it can't be just plain. So I did do some hand stitching on the birds. And of course you need to use the selvage with it, but look at those colors. And we had this back in stock. This sold out right away, and it is back in stock. 2 current projects that I'm working on. One is 100 Days of Stitch Meditation with Liz Kettle. She has a Facebook group that you can sign. she has a process for stitch meditation, and lots of people use small squares and do a different square every day. I chose to do mine in a scroll. And so I'm using this Khadi handloom cotton is my base. And again, the texture of this cotton was just added to the texture of the stitches. I'm using nothing more than a different variety of colors of our lysine sashiko threads. So I have them in this nice little bag from India that Judy brought me. And I just stitched pieces of fabric. So it's nothing fancy. This is actually a piece of Marcia Durst. We have that, and some of these are from scrap bags. We have the Japanese scrap bags. I had some other pieces from some other projects from the shop, and then I did go on Etsy. There was somebody who had fabric packs, and that's where I got these with the cats in them. So she had some more fabrics that were like in 4-inch squares. But all I'm doing is embellishing the fabric. I've put it on a wooden spool that Judy's going to have in the shop. But this is the kind of things we want to be able to do on our stitch-alongs, not just our block of the month, but some other projects where we can gather, inspire each other, work on some projects. And I'm not worried about what the back's going to look like because I'm going to put it, but I loved how I finished off. So the happy cat or the good luck cat is going to say goodbye, and he's also at the beginning. So hello and goodbye. And then my other current project, because God forbid that I would not have more than one project going, is from Liz Kettle's class at the Creative Retreat. So I took her Rags to Riches class, and this was a little bit more complex. She paints her fabrics rather than dyes them, but you could use hand dyed. This is my view of the Smoky Mountains. But what I did, it needs some work on it. But what I've done for my next steps is I've gone and taken one of our fabric books, our thread books, and I've picked out the threads that I want to use. And I will just be doing running stitch, and here I will probably do some French knots because that's who I am. But I will make flowers, but this was on a fall day, a cloudy fall day, but the threads I have selected so I can start to play with them. And a number of these are actually from that other project that I had. And then I have some leftover fabrics that in case I decide that I need a little bit of color in there, there's some fabrics in there. So that's what I'm working on today. But this one's going to take a while. Any questions?
Lots of compliments. Such beautiful work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But again, I'm not going out and buying huge amounts of stuff. I'm buying small amounts of fabric. Now, of course, we would love to have you buy more fabric. But it's not like you have to go and invest in tons of things. So we have this thread box. I'm using this for multiple projects. I have a number of these that I've bought over several years. So a box like this, which is Fauna, look how nice that's going to make this drop cloth sampler. And then you add in some variegated threads, and oh my. So I mean, my mind is just always going. The other one is, I thought this one worked nice, this fabric, but I have this in my stash left over from a quilt that we're going to have the kit go up this week. But wouldn't these birds look fun on some of that fabric? And just stitch the bird. It's from Esther McLeod's Find the Bird. She just always, you have to look hard to find her birds. I have a quilt in my at home that's Find the Cats, and you can find them, but you have to look hard. But her design, she's an illustrator, and her work is on, I follow her on Instagram. Okay, any questions?
Someone said, I love your work, and they were so glad that you were on today. And lots of people are inspired and getting great ideas and just complimenting the wonderful color and texture.
And again, it's find what gives you joy. Don't try to copy someone else's. Like I said, I've taken classes from other people. I love their work. I admire their work, but it's not me. But I learn from them, and I learn what my own style is, what my preference is. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, hand stitching, it's to give you joy. It's not to go and sell a masterpiece. It's what gives you, whether it's meditation or some quiet moments to yourself, or carry it when you're traveling because it's a nice portable project. There's lots of opportunities to use hand stitching. I mean, obviously, I love sitting at my machine. I make the quilts for the shop, but you'll find me drinking my coffee in the morning, stitching, and sipping my wine at night, stitching. So I hope you can find the same inspiration and enjoy as much as I do. Thanks for joining us today.